It starts way before the scrutiny, before the comparisons, before every move you make becomes a referendum on your entire existence. You were 9, maybe 10. Your mom just got you those Air Jordans from the clearance rack at Foot Locker, and you wore them to the rec center on Hickory Street in Akron. The older kids were playing pickup, and you stood there watching, mesmerized by the way they moved, the way the ball seemed to dance between their fingers like magic. You didn't understand spacing or defensive rotations or the politics of team chemistry, but you knew this. When that ball went through the net, something inside you lit up like Christmas morning. That stuck with you. You weren't just watching basketball, you were watching transformation. These kids from your neighborhood, kids who looked like you, kids who came from nothing, were flying. For 48 minutes, they weren't poor. They weren't forgotten, they were gods. And you wanted to be a god too. Every night after that, you'd lie in bed and imagine yourself making that same magic happen. You'd close your eyes and see yourself rising above everything that felt heavy in your world, everything that felt impossible. The first time you touched a basketball, really touched one, it felt like holding lightning. Your hands were too small, your coordination clumsy, but something about the weight of it, the texture of the leather, the way it responded to your touch, felt like destiny. You'd dribble in the alley behind your apartment complex until your mom called you in for dinner, and even then, you'd sneak the ball into your room and practice your form in the mirror. You weren't thinking about contracts or endorsements or the weight of expectations. You were just a kid who found something that made sense in a world that mostly didn't. Other kids had phases. Tommy down the hall wanted to be a firefighter for 3 months, then an astronaut, then forgot about both when he discovered video games. But this was different. This wasn't a phase. This was a calling. You could feel it in your bones, in the way your heart raced when you watched games on TV, in the way you studied every move Jordan made like you were preparing for the most important test of your life. You'd rewind the same highlight over and over, memorizing the footwork, the release point, the way he carried himself like he owned the world. Your mom worked 3 jobs and still couldn't always keep the lights on, but she saw something in your eyes when you talked about basketball. She saw hope. She saw a future that didn't involve the streets or the cycle of poverty that had claimed so many others. She didn't have money for camps or private coaches or fancy equipment, but she had belief. And sometimes, when you're 9 years old and the world feels bigger than you can handle, belief is enough to build a dream on. You started keeping a notebook, writing down everything you learned about the game. How to improve your left hand, how to read defenses, how to be clutch when it mattered most. You didn't know then that this notebook would become a prison, that every page would become another bar in a cage you'd build around yourself. You just knew that basketball was your way out, your way up, your way to matter in a world that seemed determined to forget you existed. The dream felt pure then. Clean, simple. Work hard enough, want it bad enough, and anything was possible. You'd watch LeBron James highlights on the old computer at the library, studying his game, knowing somehow that this was your blueprint. You didn't know his name would become a weight you'd carry, and that a standard you'd be measured against for the rest of your life. You just knew that if a kid from Akron could make it, maybe you could too. You weren't the best natural talent on any team you played for, but you were the one who never quit. By 8th grade, you had a reputation. You weren't the kid with the smoothest jumper or the fastest first step, but you were the grinder, the one who'd be in the gym at 6 a.m. when the janitor unlocked the doors and still be there when he locked them again. You weren't flashy. You were obsessed. High school changed everything. Suddenly, basketball wasn't just something you loved. It was something you were good at. Really good at. College scouts started showing up to games, and you'd catch them in the stands, clipboards in hand, watching your every move. The first time a coach pulled you aside and said you had potential, you went home and stared at yourself in the mirror for an hour, trying to see what he saw. You started believing your own hype. The sacrifices felt meaningful then. While your friends were at parties, you were in the gym. While they were playing video games, you were watching film. While they were dating and discovering who they were outside of their ambitions, You were becoming basketball. It didn't feel like you were giving up your childhood. It felt like you were investing in your future. Every missed party, every declined invitation, every relationship that withered because you couldn't give it the attention it deserved, all of it felt temporary, necessary, the price of greatness. You'd lie in bed at night, calculating. If you kept improving at this rate, if you kept getting stronger, faster, smarter, you'd get a full ride to college. And if you dominated there, if you made the right connections, proved yourself on the biggest stage, the NBA would be waiting. You had it all mapped out. 5 years to college ball, 4 years to establish yourself in the league, and then the real money would start flowing. Championships, endorsements, the kind of life where money never mattered again. The small wins fed the belief like oxygen feeds fire. Player of the Week, All Conference, Regional Championship. Each award felt like validation, proof that you were on the right path. You started collecting newspaper clippings, keeping them in a scrapbook your mom helped you organize. Future NBA star, one headline read, and you'd trace the words with your finger like they were scripture. You weren't just playing basketball anymore, you were fulfilling destiny. Comparing yourself to others became a full-time job. You'd study the stats of every player in your league, memorizing their shooting percentages, their assist numbers, their rebounding averages. You were better than Marcus, who got more attention because his dad was a former player. You were more dedicated than Tyler, who had better gear but worse work ethic. You were more coachable than James, who had more natural talent but less basketball IQ. You built your identity on being the hardest worker, the most dedicated, the one who wanted it most. The moment you decided this was your only path came during your junior year. You'd been having a decent season, nothing spectacular, but steady improvement. Then you got injured, torn ACL, 6 months out. As you sat in that hospital bed watching your teammates play without you, something crystallized. This wasn't just what you did, this was who you were. Without basketball, you were nothing, nobody, just another kid from Akron with big dreams and no backup plan. Recovery became your religion. Physical therapy sessions twice a day, strength training, mental conditioning. You read every book about sports psychology you could find, studied every comeback story, memorized every motivational quote. You weren't just healing from injury, you were forging yourself into something unbreakable. Or so you thought. When you came back senior year, you were different. Hungrier, more focused, more desperate, though you wouldn't have admitted it then. You'd eliminated everything from your life that wasn't basketball. No social media, no relationships, no hobbies, no backup plans. You'd made basketball your god, and like all gods, it demanded complete devotion. You gave it willingly, gladly, because you believed it loved you back. The college offers started coming in. Not from Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky, but from solid programs where you could get playing time and develop your skills. You'd hold those letters in your hands and feel like you were holding your future. This was it. This was what all the sacrifice was for. You were going to be a college basketball player, and from there, who knew how high you could climb? Then one day it happens. You're a sophomore at a mid-major school, and you're having the game of your life. 28 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. The crowd is on its feet, your teammates are looking at you like you've unlocked some secret level of basketball, and there's an NBA scout in the stands. You can feel his eyes on you, evaluating, calculating, seeing dollar signs. And for a second, you think, this is it. You celebrate in your dorm room that night, calling your mom, telling her you might not need all 4 years of college after all. But weeks pass, then months. No follow-up calls, just silence. You start over. The scout never calls. Your coach, who'd been hyping you up all season, suddenly gets realistic about your prospects. You're a good college player, he says, but the league is looking for something different. Different. The word echoes in your head for days. You watch NBA highlights obsessively, trying to figure out what they have that you don't. Speed? You work on your quickness. Size? You hit the weight room harder. Skills? You practice until your hands bleed. But reality has a way of creeping in, despite your best efforts to ignore it. You're not getting bigger. You're not getting significantly faster. You're not developing the kind of elite skills that make scouts stop everything they're doing and make phone calls. You're just good. Really good at the college level, but good in a way that doesn't translate to professional sports. The gap between your dreams and your abilities starts to reveal itself like a crack in a dam. The worst part is watching other players you know you're better than, get opportunities you don't. The coach's son, who gets more playing time despite shooting 30% from the field. The transfer student who gets featured in Sports Illustrated despite having worse numbers than you. The freshman who gets invited to elite camps because his AAU coach has connections. You start realizing that talent is just one part of the equation, and maybe not even the most important part. You double down on effort because it's the only variable you can control. You're first in the gym, last to leave. You watch more film than the coaches. You study opponent tendencies until you can predict their plays before they happen. You become a student of the game in ways that would impress NBA analysts. But none of it matters, because you're still the same size, still have the same athletic limitations, still lack that indefinable quality that separates the good from the great. The breaking point comes during your junior year. You're playing in a tournament, and there's a kid on the other team, a freshman, who's clearly going to be a lottery pick. You watch him warm up, and it's like watching a different species. The ease with which he moves, the confidence in his eyes, the way he makes impossible shots look routine. You realize you've been deluding yourself. You're not going to catch up to that level. You're not going to close that gap. You're going to be a very good college player who becomes a very good overseas player or a very good recreational league player. But you're never going to be what you dreamed of being. The game becomes different after that. It stops being about joy and starts being about survival. You can't quit because you've sacrificed too much to get here. You can't succeed at the level you dreamed of because you simply don't have the tools. So you exist in this liminal space, this purgatory of almost good enough, playing because it's all you know how to do, hoping because it's all you have left, but knowing deep down that the dream is dying a slow, painful death. Your senior year becomes a funeral for your childhood ambitions. You put up good numbers, you help your team win games, you graduate with a degree you're not sure you want to use, and you realize that 4 years of college basketball have prepared you for exactly one thing: more basketball. But the basketball you're qualified for isn't the basketball you dreamed of. It's overseas leagues with names you can't pronounce, or semi-professional teams in cities you've never heard of, or coaching jobs that pay less than your mom made working 3 jobs back in Akron. You don't remember when it stopped being fun. Somewhere between your 3rd team change in 2 years and the realization that you're playing in empty gyms in countries where you don't speak the language, you realized you weren't chasing the original dream anymore. You were surviving. You realize you've been deluding yourself. You're not going to catch up to that level. You're not going to close that gap. You're going to be a very good college player who becomes a very good overseas player or a very good recreational league player. But you're never going to be what you dreamed of being. The game becomes different after that. It stops being about joy and starts being about survival. You can't quit because you've sacrificed too much to get here. You can't succeed at the level you dreamed of because you simply don't have the tools. So you exist in this liminal space, this purgatory of almost good enough, playing because it's all you know how to do, hoping because it's all you have left, but knowing deep down that the dream is dying a slow, painful death. Your senior year becomes a funeral for your childhood ambitions. You put up good numbers, you help your team win games, you graduate with a degree you're not sure you want to use, and you realize that 4 years of college basketball have prepared you for exactly one thing: more basketball. But the basketball you're qualified for isn't the basketball you dreamed of. It's overseas leagues with names you can't pronounce, or semi-professional teams in cities you've never heard of, or coaching jobs that pay less than your mom made working 3 jobs back in Akron. You don't remember when it stopped being fun. Somewhere between your 3rd team change in 2 years and the realization that you're playing in empty gyms in countries where you don't speak the language, you realized you weren't chasing the original dream anymore. You were surviving. The overseas experience was supposed to be temporary, a stepping stone, a way to develop your skills while getting paid to play the game you loved. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when you don't have other options. You're 24 years old, playing for a team in Lithuania, living in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like cigarettes and disappointment. Your teammates are career journeymen who've accepted their fate, and you're starting to realize you might be becoming one of them. The money isn't bad, but it's not NBA money. It's not even close to what you imagine professional basketball would pay. After taxes, agent fees, travel expenses, and trying to send some money home to your mom, you're living paycheck to paycheck like everyone else. Except everyone else gets to sleep in their own bed every night and doesn't have to explain to their high school classmates why they're playing for a team called BC Šiauliai instead of the Lakers. Your body starts breaking down in ways that would have terrified your 18-year-old self. Your knees ache every morning. Your back seizes up from sleeping on hotel beds that feel like they're made of concrete. You've had 3 concussions, 2 separated shoulders, and a broken hand that never healed quite right. The pain is constant now, a dull throb that reminds you every day that you're not the indestructible athlete you once believed yourself to be. The financial struggles compound everything else. You're 30 years old, and you have no retirement savings, no property, no investments. You've been a professional athlete for 6 years, and you have less money than your friends who went to college and got normal jobs. Every contract negotiation feels like begging. Every injury feels like a potential career ender. Every year you get older, you become more expendable, more replaceable, more desperate. You watch your former teammates move on with their lives. Your college roommate is a successful accountant with a house in the suburbs and 2 kids. Your high school point guard owns a construction company and coaches his daughter's youth team for fun. They ask you about your basketball career when you see them at weddings or funerals, and you smile and say, "It's going well," but you can see the pity in their eyes. They know. Everyone knows. The sunk cost fallacy becomes your religion. You've invested too much to quit now. 15 years of your life, from age 9 to 24, dedicated to becoming a professional basketball player. You can't walk away from that investment. You can't admit that it was all for nothing. So you keep playing, keep grinding, keep hoping that the next contract will be the one that changes everything, even though you know it won't. Relationships become impossible. How do you explain to someone that you're 32 years old and you've never had a real job? How do you build a life with someone when you don't know what country you'll be living in next year? How do you promise stability when your entire existence is built on instability? You watch other people get married, have families, build careers, and you realize that basketball hasn't just failed to give you what you wanted, it's prevented you from wanting anything else. The original passion, the pure love that drove you to practice until your hands bled, dies slowly. Basketball becomes a job, and not a particularly good one. You go through the motions because you have to, because you don't know how to do anything else, because admitting failure would mean admitting that everything you've sacrificed was for nothing. You play because you're trapped, not because you love it. Sleep becomes your enemy. Every night, you lie in bed and think about the choices you made, the opportunities you missed, the life you could have had if you'd been realistic about your abilities earlier. You think about the degree you never used, the relationships you never prioritized, the skills you never developed because you were too busy perfecting a crossover dribble that wasn't good enough anyway. And that's why it sucks to be an icon like LeBron James. Because even if you walk away from basketball, something always stays in those empty gyms. You thought there'd be a moment when it all made sense, when all the sacrifice and pain and disappointment would crystallize into something meaningful. Instead, there's this. You're 35 years old, your career's over, and you have no idea who you are without a basketball in your hands. The identity crisis hits you like a freight train. For 26 years, you've been a basketball player. Not a person who plays basketball, but a basketball player. It's been your noun, your verb, your entire sense of self. When people asked what you did, you said you played basketball. When they asked what you wanted to be, you said professional athlete. When they asked what you were good at, you said basketball. Now what? You're a former basketball player, which sounds less like an identity and more like an obituary. You still hope, despite knowing better. You check your phone obsessively, waiting for a call from an agent, a coach, a league you've never heard of. You watch NBA games and convince yourself you could still contribute, that some team will realize they need your veteran presence, your basketball IQ, your intangibles. You work out religiously, maintaining your conditioning just in case, even though your joints scream in protest and your reflection in the gym mirror looks like a ghost of your former self. The permanent damage reveals itself in quiet moments. Your knees will never be the same. Your sleep patterns are destroyed from years of different time zones and game schedules. You have no marketable skills outside of basketball. You've never had a real job, never learned how to network in any other industry, never developed relationships that aren't connected to the game. You're a 35-year-old man with the resume of a teenager. How the dream became the prison is the cruelest irony of all. Basketball was supposed to be your freedom, your ticket out of poverty, your path to significance. Instead, it became a cage. Every choice you made was filtered through basketball. Every relationship was secondary to basketball. Every opportunity was evaluated based on whether it would help or hurt your basketball career. You optimized your entire life for a goal that was always just slightly out of reach, and in doing so, you eliminated every other possibility. The haunting question that keeps you awake at night is the simplest one. What was it all for? What did you gain from spending your entire youth and young adulthood chasing something that was never really attainable? You're not rich, you're not famous, you're not fulfilled, you're not even particularly good at basketball anymore. You're just tired and broken, and wondering what your life would have looked like if you'd been brave enough to quit when you still had time to build something else. You see LeBron James on TV, and instead of inspiration, you feel a complicated mix of admiration and resentment. He made it. He became everything you dreamed of becoming. But even he looks tired sometimes. Even he seems burdened by the weight of expectations and the pressure of being perfect. You wonder if he ever thinks about what he sacrificed to get there. If he ever questions whether it was worth it. If he ever looks at normal people living normal lives and feels something that might be envy. The dream that was supposed to save you became the thing that trapped you. And the most terrifying part is that you're not sure you'd change anything if you could go back. Because for a brief moment, when you were 9 years old and watching those kids play basketball at the rec center, you felt like anything was possible. And maybe that feeling, even if it led to nothing, was worth more than a lifetime of reasonable expectations and sensible choices. But probably not. This is the reality behind the dream that society sells to millions of kids every year. For every LeBron James who makes it to the mountaintop, there are countless others who sacrifice everything for a dream that was never really theirs to begin with. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join the Grindflix community. We're building something special here. Real stories about real dreams and the price we pay to chase them. Drop a comment below and let us know what country you're watching from. We love seeing our global community grow. And if you have a story about chasing a dream that became a prison, we want to hear it. More hard truths coming soon. Next week, we're diving into why it sucks to be a struggling musician, and trust me, it's going to hit different. Grindflix, where dreams go to die, but truth lives forever. Like, subscribe, and keep grinding, or don't. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is quit.